Hello and welcome to the Free Cheese episode 584. I'm your Joe Dix, joined by Matt Zellner.
Hello.
The Free Cheese is a weekly video game podcast about video games brought to you once a week by thefreecheese.com. Today's our second of 3 episodes discussing the Wii Sports Killers for Season 12. Our conversation continues today on this here episode with my selections for Season 12. Halo Combat Evolved and Pokemon Gold version, Pokemon Silver version. Specifically, we'll talk about the rest of the time we spent with these games after recording our multi-part episodes earlier this year. Then we will compare them with one another. And that's, of course, all before next week when we gather to rank them, compare them to Wii Sports, and find out if these two and Matt's two have what it takes to dethrone Wii Sports as the king. It's been a year for video games.
Yeah.
We picked some of the cream of the crop here, Matt. We're going to jump into Halo Combat Evolved right now. Matt, what makes Halo special to you?
Such a loaded question, because there's a lot. I think the single-player campaigns, for the most part, there's some stinkers as you go later, but for the most part, the single-player campaigns are so good. It's like the birth of console multiplayer for me, in a way, and everything that represents. The Chief himself is so iconic and just screams Xbox, and I was like the original mascot that screams Xbox. Yeah, it's just I don't know. It's like one of the best first-person shooter series, period, and I think still is today. Although I would say maybe falling down the ranks a little bit, but it's still up there.
I agree. Like it's not what it once was, and I think now we're at a point where maybe collectively people have been more disappointed with Halo games than they've been excited about Halo games. Maybe.
It sucks because they play better, I think, nowadays. But that's a different conversation for a different day, I think.
I agree with playing the Infinite throwback to Halo 2 that just happened for the 20th anniversary. I'm playing it, and they stunt your movement, so it feels like you're playing Halo 2 again, and it still feels better. And part of me was like, I'll just play Halo 2, but it really does. They've made so many changes, and it looks great. It looks beautiful. I mean, we'll see what are they now? Halo Studios has to bring with future Halo games. My guess is that this game here, Halo Combat Evolved, is being remade for 2026 for the 25th anniversary of the game. And it'll be, I guess, more like a Silent Hill 2 remake or like a Final Fantasy 7 remake, where it's not going to be just, hey, here's brand new assets, brand new levels, new gameplay. I think they'll do a proper reimagining of sorts. I bet that's where they're headed with this new one.
I can see that, especially with all the lore that's come after the fact.
Yeah, I think it makes sense because it lets them.
What did we say in the first episode? I think Cortana says Forerunners as a throwaway line.
Yeah, exactly, right? But now they could kind of bake that stuff in and lead it back to the Flood, and they could do interesting things as they take a second attempt at creating a clean slate for people to jump into. What specifically about Halo Combat Evolve, what does it represent for you in the history of video games?
It's the shooter that crawled so everyone after it could walk on a console. I think
I feel like it walked out of the gate so that everyone else could walk too.
I think the campaign walks, the multiplayer, just because internet's not there.
Yeah, you're right.
But
it was definitely
they
weaker.
take the team deathmatch thing and from Doom to capture the flag and those types of game modes and weaponry with Quake. And then it graduates again, and it's just the only thing that Doom and Quake had was LAN. I mean, it was LAN, but there was some internet capabilities around Quake. But it was online services with Halo 2 that have really, I think, console multiplayer started to walk. But I think you're right, though. The campaign stands on its own. It's still one of the best campaigns, I think.
Yeah. I think... Have we done a ranking of Halo campaigns yet?
Oof, that's a good idea. Jot that down for season 13.
Doing it right now. Let's go. I mean,
all right,
is one
5.
the best? Yeah.
Gosh, probably. It's the most complete out of the original trilogy. 4's garbage. 5's weird. And then it's Infinite.
Yeah. See, like, remember my experience playing these campaigns was back to back to back. So, and I played 2 for the first time with the anniversary edition that had all of the, like, modern Blur Studio cutscenes that looked as good as 5, and 2 felt very similar to 5 to me. So, like, for me, my ranking is almost like 1 Infinite, 3, 2, 5 split, 4?
I would probably do 1, 3. 2's good. Oh man,
2's good.
I might just straight up just like 1, 2, 3, Infinite 5, 4. Just the.
Where do you slip ODST and Reach in there?
Oh fuck! I forgot about Reach. I never played ODST, so I can't speak for that. I think 3's better than Reach. Although, do I like 3 better than 2? 2 sucks because I think if you play that back to back to back, there's no impact. I remember Mr. Chief saying, "Time to finish the fight," and then the game cut to black and credits.
Yes,
and I was not.
Yeah.
I had to wait.
Playing via the Master Chief Collection, I felt nothing. I felt excited because I walked upstairs, refilled my coffee while the credits were rolling, came back down, and jumped right into 3. I didn't have to wait 3 years like everyone else, you know?
And then 3's pacing's weird because 3 it finishes Halo 2's campaign and then like starts its own campaign. That's why there's this weird gapping the pacing, which I found out after the fact, like years down the road. So 3's pacing's weird because 2 is short.
Yeah, that's a good point. Which, again, playing them back to back, it all just kind of blurs. But So this one, you said, sets the stage so that everyone that comes after it has a template to build off of. What do you think specifically are the key innovations of gameplay in Halo?
I think it's the engine itself. I think Halo's at its best when, and we've said that, this is nothing new. Halo's at its best when there's spontaneous dumb moments happening that feel like the game's bugging out, but it's really not. It's just the engine allowing you to do it. And because of that, like each, I could go into checkpoint hell into a Call of Duty like veteran run where I start to like then realize like this enemy's gonna come out at this timing, this enemy's gonna come out at this timing, and it plays slightly different, but it's essentially the same. Dude, there's the enemy placement's the same, but their behavior changes each kind of play. And like a rogue grenade upsets the whole, it's like a ripple effect almost. Like one enemy does this, so then it forces you to do this, which forces the enemy to do this. And the ripple effect of each checkpoint changes what tends to happen. And I think the fact that like Halo is built, every game's built on an engine, but it feels like the engine allows for the sandbox, and the sandbox just happens to have cool-ass campaign moments in it.
Yeah, because I think there's a lot of games that I go back to, but I don't know, like, the games I go back to the most frequently, if I'm thinking about it, it's not usually games that have a full beginning and end, right? It's games more like Tetris Effect or something where it's, the gameplay is shorter. I can just jump in, play a bit and whatever, but like, I will return to Symphony of the Night because it just feels like, going home. Or even any of the Castlevanias, I will run through them. And there's not much variance to it. It's just sort of like, I know what I'm doing. But with Halo, to your point, it kind of always feels different, even though you know what to do. But like, there's always something a little bit different about each time you go through Halo. And it's one where playing that campaign 2.5 times this year felt like nothing. It was natural. It made sense to do. Now that we're a few months after our sort of 3-part series and we're it's in the rearview mirror, are there any levels from the game that still stand out to you from your core memory of playing Halo?
Guilty Spark 343, still one of the best. There's a theme in our games that we picked here. I think each one has some kind of magical, like, cream of the crop level. It's Guilty Spark 343 is that for me. I said this in the first part. It's just like the game's pacing in one way, and then just as you might get fatigued on it, it flips into this weird horror game all of a sudden, and it's awesome. And the change of pace is exactly what the game needed at that point to keep you on your toes. And then you start getting this fun back and forth where, one room is the Flood, the next room is the Covenant, and you got them battling each other, and Master Chief's just kind of in the middle of everything. It turns what that campaign was so much and flips it upside down, and it almost sets the tone for, like, essentially the run back through Halo, because the whole game, like the second half of the campaign, is just you playing through the first half of reverse.
Which those are the levels that stand out to me the most in my like core memory of it, because I think because you see them so frequently that like they're really there. But I think it's also at that point you kind of have this familiarity with it. You sort of get for me, I feel like I kind of immediately had this feeling, and now subsequent playthroughs, I return to that feeling of like, you sort of take on the role of Master Chief where you are exploring this planet. And the first time you walk through, you're a little bit more prudent and it seems a little scarier, but the second time through, while it's chaotic, it feels a little bit more, I feel a little bit less reluctant to just run through. I'm more confident going through, and like it's those things, especially when you can run through with confidence and exceed or succeed. Mm-hmm. Those levels stand out just because it feels good to play. But in the history of first-person shooters, where does Halo Combat Evolved fall?
It's up there, for sure.
Is it the best first-person shooter?
Well, considering we have other first-person shooters that are amongst the top of our list, I'm going to reserve that. I'm going to reserve my thoughts for that.
Okay, fair enough. Stay tuned for next week, kids. Was this the first one that made you care about a story in a first-person shooter?
I'm trying to think what I would have played at this point.
I guess my answer immediately is no, because Perfect Dark came before this, and I loved the story in Perfect Dark.
Right. I think I maybe have started playing some of the Medal of Honor games before I play Halo. And not that the Medal of Honor games were anything special, but they did have stories.
Yeah, enough to draw you in and make you pay attention.
Especially Frontline, like started at D, like all those, especially those later PS2 ones. Was it Rising Sun and Frontline? The starts to those campaigns are incredible because of where the significance of those days are. They kind of just throw you in and make you start caring in that way.
Right, yeah. How does Combat Evolved compare to other Halo games? Which I guess we kind of answered that in our ranking of them, but I guess specifically like campaign and the idea of the first-person shooter with a controller.
I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it did it right out of the gate. You know what I mean? Like, I think some things have gotten better, and I agree with you. I think Halo Infinite now plays like you'd expect a shooter to play, where I feel like 4 and 5 still tried to hold on to that legacy control and legacy movement and things like that we've just kind of gotten away from as a gaming species. But I still, yeah, I mean, we said it before. I think it is the best campaign. I love going back to it. I love it now in the Master Chief Collection because we can play the multiplayer online with people on those maps, and it still feels small and fun and sort of a little bit like that just classic goofing around split screen, even though you're not. And I think that right from the start, they have that really, really deep world building. You get to know the key players in heroes, villains, besides, etc., aliens, Flood, whoever. Like, you kind of have all these things right there. The universe just seems so big. And it's something that, not having played these games properly until 2017, I still had a sense of that without having ever played one, just because the culture around Halo became so palpable. Like, you could really feel it all the way through from the outside, even never owning an Xbox or anything. But it made you want to own an Xbox. It made you want to be a part of this thing that everybody else was a part of. Where do you see other games drawing influence from Halo since its release?
I think put an effort into a campaign, because I think if I can't speak for, I don't know, it's tough ask in a first-person shooter to not include a multiplayer, but you have to also have one hell of a campaign for someone to actually care. Like, we played some of those first-person shooters where they did have multiplayer, Syndicate, like earlier this year. What's the other game by that developer?
The Darkness.
Yeah, like those two games obviously don't have well, I guess Syndicate did, but it was co-op.
Yeah, different,
but not in a traditional sense. But like the original first-person shooter campaign games, and I think they just kind of came and went, and you see so much of that. So I think, like, you know, really cementing campaign as being part of like a first-person shooter package. And then again, I don't think we probably get there in some way, but really that first Halo game really set the tone for what incoming technology was around the corner. It really, like, everything was there. It just it lacked the technology. And once the technology around it, the infrastructure got into place, they pretty much just brought that package to 2, and it was perfect.
And then you see it like a generation later with 360 and Halo 3, where that was it, right? You had your campaign, you had, I mean, the biggest release ever, and then you had the multiplayer for years on end. And it wouldn't be until Call of Duty kind of usurped it.
I was gonna say, or until you got red ringed, but
that too, yeah. But hey, you just went and bought another one, right? That's why the sales numbers are so high. How do you think Halo Combat Evolved balances difficulty?
I think one of the difficulty levels actually work in a way that's not just more bullets and you take less damage. I do think that the AI plays a bit better as you go up the level. Now, you definitely eat less bullets. I'm not going to say this entirely not cheap in that way, but like if you're walking around with a plasma pistol and a regular pistol, you deal the same amount of damage as you do in regular, like, novice territory. I forget the first level, but yeah, like your regular level. So, you know, I think the difficulty does a big part in it. And then I think the Flood, when it gets introduced, it gives a different type of enemy. Well, different types, honestly. And like I said, it throws you off balance in a way that you don't expect. And then once you get into those Covenant v Flood interventions, like, you have all the different types of enemies. And then, of course, just naturally, like, you get different ranks of elites as you progress through the game. You get your invisible boys, your gold ones. You know, they increase it too.
Overall fair balance, though, you think?
I think so. Especially, like I said, I mean, I think I said this before. Like, there's the difference between that veteran run and that regular run. You know, I think if you're in it for the cinematic experience, the regular run, like maybe even playing it on the next level up is acceptable. But you know, I don't think. I think there's 2 runs to be had here if you want that challenge run.
Yeah, I think it lets people go deeper if they want to and push themselves. We talked about how many times we've replayed this campaign just this year alone, but, you know, also in the last few years. And I think that's a thing, too, where the first time I played it, I think I just did hero or whatever, like,
heroic,
to kind of, see my way through it on my own. And then playing through in co-op for the first time, I was like, all right, let's go legendary and let's go all the way. And, like, you have that kind of encouragement to do so, and it's rewarding. It feels good to do it. With that, do you feel anybody could pick up this game and play it?
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the original twin stick first person shooters. I know it's not the original, but one of them. And there's, you know, is grandma and grandpa picking up the controller playing this? Probably not, but like, if they wanted to, I think the game walks you through what to do.
Yeah, you could get there. What elements of, just sort of final thoughts on look, feel, etc., what elements of the soundtrack still linger with you?
Humming that damn tune.
The beach one? Or the you mean the main
main guy, yeah. I mean, that's
iconic.
It's just like the most iconic thing in the world nowadays.
Yeah, there's very few games at this caliber that have that kind of, like, with a score, right? Like, we talked about it last week with Mario Galaxy, where, like, I like all the music there. I love the orchestral takes on everything and how big it is, but there's not necessarily a definitive theme that I'm, like, walking around humming. But after I play Halo or just think about Halo for a little bit of time, I am just for like a week or two. How about the visual design of Halo? What stands out to you now, looking back on it?
Now, purple katana. Now,
yeah.
One, I remember how good that game looked back in the day, and I was like, "Oh, this is like God, look how real this is. We're like, we're there, man. This is How can you get much better than this?
Never. Look at those faces.
Well, we got better, kind of, but I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. Yeah. But dude, the game still holds up today. Like, I'm not just talking Master Chief Collection. When I came over to your house and played on the original guy, like, it still looks good. And I'm shocked about it still holds up for the type of art style they use, because they kind of go for realism, which, you know, I would say older games that shy away for that go for a more unique art style. I think we talked like Jet Set looks really good today still. You know, some of those games that go for cell shading versus that kind of stuff. But man, that game looks good still. And I don't know. I don't know. The Halo games have always kind of seemed to outdo one another, especially when they got Blur involved. Their cinematics, like, forget about it. But
yeah,
this game, it stands out. I think it still looks good today, like compared.
I think about I think the camera direction plays a big role in, like, setting the tone for that. Like, the way that a camera will sweep into a stage to introduce you to an area or something like that, like, those things stick out to me. For me, the second level, I forget the name of it now. Is it the
Halo?
Silent Cartographer or the Halo? The one where you've got to ping pong to the 3 different spots, clear out the bases, etc.
The titular Halo.
Yeah. That one, like, landing there for the first time and seeing the trees and the texture and the hill and, like, just this world that you're on, like, that to me is what I always, like, remember when I think back to Halo. it just it looks good. It's simple trees. It's not anything like complicated. And obviously, you can make a tree look completely realistic, but something about those trees in that area always sticks with me. That spot there.
Speaking of that level, I think my one little teeny tiny complaint about this game is showing players what to do at times, especially that level. That level, especially. Yes. What are your thoughts on some of the markers at times, or maybe lack thereof?
It's the lack thereof. They wait just too long, right? Like, I'm the biggest one today to call out a game for oversimplifying or not having enough confidence in the player. But this one had a little bit too much confidence in the player. It almost seems like whoever was coding the timer that like calls out where your next checkpoint is added an extra digit by mistake. Like, it's just like,
yeah.
You're just waiting a little bit too long. And we saw that firsthand. Like, you forget about it for a while when you kind of play this game and you remember, like, let me go here, let me go there. But we ran into that playing co-op, and it was like, wait, which one haven't we been to yet? And it was like, all right, well, let's just sit still and sit still and okay, there. It took forever to jump, but yeah. And there's other like definitely levels throughout where you just kind of don't know which enemy you have to kill, or like what's my actual objective. And I think that makes it tough to sort of like intuit what to do next. Overall, yeah, run, shoot, kill, whatever, but you can get lost in these stages because they've built this sort of physics sandbox and this open playground for you to just have fun with. It's very easy to wander in some direction, get way out of where you're supposed to be, and not really know how to get back or where to go next. Same thing with, like, you can pretty easily get yourself caught in a situation where you're not supposed to be by breaking that physics. We talked in our part 3 of this Halo series with our co-op campaign where we tried a lot of we were in that one level, we were trying to do the
power slide
trick.
The door.
Yeah. And like with that, we didn't end up glitching, but like you can very easily glitch stuff like that and end up sort of soft locking yourself in a bad way.
Shoot. Oh, that's what I was gonna say. Like those big levels where you kind of start to lose yourself if you're kind of not paying attention enough. I think that's the one time this game shows its original idea of being a top-down like strategy game.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad thing because I think it does lead to the awesome sandbox moments I was kind of talking about at the top of this episode. But that's also where I think it displays its weakness because it didn't. Mm-hmm. It was too far all into development. They couldn't pivot off that idea, and you got awesome maps, but you also got lost at times.
100%. We had that in that same level when we were like, wait, is it up this one or up like, and we ended up doing a loop around the island before we figured out where to go. Yeah, I think that's the one part where it makes it sort of tough to follow. It's just sort of.
I mean, tell me that Halo map with the encaved, like the mountains and cave in, like that's not perfect for a base placement.
Yeah,
and having 4 different bases around that level with the river right in the middle. Yep.
I guess in closing, what's your lasting memory, feeling, thing about Halo Combat Evolved? And you can be specific to this year if you want, or in totality, just sort of what lingers with you about Halo?
I will forever pin it as the Xbox mascot, even though it's gotten, especially in recent history, has acquired PlayStation's former mascots nowadays that are on Game Pass, Crash and Spyro. But like Chief will always be the face of Xbox for me. Halo will always be the face of first-person shooters, more so than Call of Duty, I think, just because it was kind of first to market in a way.
And it has a face. Like Call of Duty doesn't keep a consistent face.
What are you talking about? It has generic soldier with guns. That's
fair. Yeah, you're right.
With a shadow over the face. That's my
big
mascot.
Yeah, you got it.
Or Nicki Minaj nowadays. I don't know.
Yeah.
Michael Myers, like whatever the fuck. Anyway, no, I just that's like I wish modern Halo could put something all together, because I do think there's juice in the IP, but I wouldn't be clamoring and hoping and praying that the next entry in Halo puts it all together if this one wasn't the masterpiece that it was.
I think, I can't say it any better than that. This game just did it right away, and it's impressive to me that I was able to build such a like deep, profound love for it and appreciation for it 16 years after it came out, and now we're coming up on, oh my gosh, that's crazy that I first played this in 2017, 16 years after it came out, and that was already 7 years ago. We're 2 years out from the 25th anniversary. It's a time, man. Time keeps on Michael Jordaning. But yeah, I think that it's just that good that you can jump into it. Now, if you've never played Halo, you could play it today, and I think you can have that same level of appreciation just going through that core campaign. But it was all there back in 2001. And to me, that's the impressive thing. So we'll switch over to Pokemon Gold, Pokemon Silver, the other game / games that I chose as Wii Sports Killers. And for this, looking back, Matt, what is Pokemon Silver? Why is it special to you?
Why is it special to you?
I remember playing and loving Blue and getting way into Pokemon because it was 1998, and that's what else were you gonna do? Like, how could you not? And when Gold came out, Gold was the last one I played before I was too cool for Pokemon. But it was the one where, I don't know, at that point you had some, like, I remember in Blue doing all the missing no stuff and like doing the weird surf tricks and going to the truck to try and find Mew, and like the things that worked, the things that didn't work. But there was this whole big, I don't know, sort of outside of the game itself conversation that was happening that just made Pokemon impossible to ignore. And then with Gold coming out, it was just like, oh man, we get to do this all over again with all of these new Pokemon. Because that was the best part in Blue, was like, what are the monsters going to look like? What are they going to be called? How are they going to help me and my team? How are they going to complement my starter? Whatever. And now it's like you get these new starters all over again. Like,
oh, how original looking.
Well, yeah. But like the starters still today, like if you told me tomorrow that there's an upcoming Pokemon Direct where they're going to reveal the starters for the next generation of Pokemon, like that is easily one of the, I don't know where to rank it or what to even call it.
Is that the last like lingering like Smash who's here thing still left? I'm really hoping, and who knows, by the time this episode's coming out rather quickly, so I don't think they will. But I mean, I guess we are around that season, aren't we?
I think we're probably good for a Direct this year. I doubt we get anything else in 2024 that isn't like maybe a small one-off thing. My hope is when the Switch successor is officially announced, we are getting a Mario Kart that is more of a Nintendo Kart, and that picks up the Smash baton.
That'd be cool.
Like, just to keep doing that sort of who's here, who's next.
Our first reveal, Mario. God damn it, I knew it!
Well, like, I don't know. At the same time, in Sakurai's farewell video for his YouTube channel, he talked about a game he's been working on since 2022. So, like,
Smash.
He could just be doing another Smash. I mean, We could very much have the next thing, but
with Mario.
To your point, the Pokemon starters, it's one of those for sure. Like seeing what they look like is always exciting. And of course, seeing how they evolve and like guessing what that looks like is always an exciting thing. With this though, I remember feeling like, wow, look at these cool new starters, how weird they are. There's 100 other Pokemon to collect. And then there was still this like deep allure for me with like the mythical or legendary Pokemon in this. Like getting the 3 dogs in this, like they felt cool. Like there was just something about Gold that, I don't know, it felt like the next generation of Pokemon. Like we didn't have anything to like compare it to, but like back then, I think especially, and I think it's twofold, right? Because I think when did this one come out? 2000 in America. So I'm like 11. I'm 11. I only have 11 video game years behind me or whatever, right? At that point. Also, video games are very young. Franchises are very young. So there's not this like, Pokemon wasn't Pokemon. Like, yeah, it was big back then, but it's not,
right.
It was nowhere near where it is now. It was just sort of like everywhere. But at the same time, you just sort of had this, it carried this like weight to it. Like now it's an expectation that gets fulfilled, right? Like when the Switch successor gets announced and they announce a new Mario Kart, we're all going to be stoked, but we're also going to say, well, duh, right? Like the only thing that's truly exciting in a thing like that is, I don't know, what hat is Mario wearing? Not really, but it's like, what is the arms of the Switch successor, right? Like, what's the weird thing that no one expected? Because you expect a new Mario, you expect a new Zelda, you expect a new whatever, but like, what's the Splatoon of the new generation? And with Pokemon, that's how Pokemon is now, I think. Like, when they inevitably announce whatever the 10th generation is, which will
whatever
probably
color,
be yeah, it'll be the 30th anniversary games in 2026. Man, we're going to have a good 2026. We got a new Halo remake coming in 26, and we've got 30th anniversary Pokemon games. Pokemon, what do you want to call them? Green and red. Look at that. I don't know, whatever they end up being, right? But those 10th generation games, like when they happen, they will be exciting, but they're an inevitability. Gold felt like magic. It was something cool. And by that point, Game Boy Color's out. I've got a link cable. I'm actively taking advantage of those things and trading and battling with my brother and friends. And like, it was special in that sense, that it just really was a special experience that you couldn't then, and I don't think can now replicate. Granted, I'm currently playing through Pokemon Violet, and the modern conveniences of that game are incredible, and I would not trade them at all. Like, the fact that I'm having a tough time finding a Pokemon in the wild in Pokemon Violet DLC, so I can open the home app on my phone, take a duplicate starter that I have, and put it in the global trading system and say, I need one of those, I'll give you one of these. And within an hour, I get a notification that says, your trade's complete. Great, there goes that Pokedex. And like, wouldn't trade that at all to go back to the old days, but there was something special to those for sure. And this was your first time playing Silver for this year, right? And
God, yeah.
Yeah. You played Red before. No, you played Blue.
Blue.
And that's it.
Core Pokemon games, pretty much, yeah.
Which is crazy that you skipped all of them.
This isn't my jam. The Pocket Monsters, I think I've discovered a while ago, not necessarily my jam. However, this one was fun.
So where does Pokemon Gold, Pokemon Silver lie in the history of video games for you?
You're right. Where if it does back then, it's like that. I slightly remember. This is where, like, you know, nowadays our age difference doesn't mean much, but back then, was it 3 years? Yeah, 3 years big, because what, you're 11, I'm 8.
Yeah.
Yes, I do feel the impact of that first true sequel, and I do remember, like, you know, the new Pokemon and the hype around that, but I just, I don't know, I never got it. And it took me until now to play it, but like, I remember the hype around it. I remember the gold and silver carts that came out back in the day. I remember seeing the starters for the first time, thinking they're kind of weird, but we have to move away from the Charmanders of the world. But gold, it's tough. It's tough to say gold and silver specifically, besides just remember the launch area or the launch time frame of that game. Because I didn't play until now, but there's definitely nowadays, like you said, there's modern conveniences that you just don't get here. It doesn't make for a frustrating experience, but you kind of know how it gets better as well.
Yeah, that's fair. What do you see in these? And this is a tough question because you're gonna have to look back to playing Blue as a kid. But what do you see as the major innovations in Gold, Silver over Red, Blue?
I really do think just the sheer kind of scope of this game, the fit on the same exact cart that added 100 Pokemon and a whole map, which was the core aspect of the game. Oh, and by the way, we're still going to add Kanto as well, because this is going to feel like a proper 1.5 in a way. I think that scope is kind of that next step.
And I think right with that, for me, the takeaways in this game were I remember talking about it on the episodes we did earlier this year. It's the day-night cycle, the real-time clock, and the in-universe battles you have, the cell phone thing where you trade numbers with people in the game and they'll call you later on for rematches. That thing where it just sort of built out the same. It felt real, you know what I mean? And it felt like a place you lived in, because you kind of did, right? If you wanted to catch a Hoot, you had to play at night. If you wanted to evolve your Eevee into Espeon, you had to play it during the day. There were things about the game that, were built on those innovations. But I think also just it all felt incredibly immersive, which the first one already, it did enough to put you in that world. And then by the time you get to this, everything is Pokemon. There's the show, there's the movie, the Burger King toys, there's everything everywhere. We were making up Pokemon and doing MS Paint.
Be careful, because you might get copyright strike by Nintendo if you reveal some of the drawings. I feel like that's where they gone. Would you say that's those things you just said are some of your lasting memories of Pokemon Silver or that time?
Yeah, I think it was playing it then, especially, it was just being excited about Pokemon. Playing it now, it's those things. It's it feels like a real world, and it's what I want out of a Pokemon game still. The modern games don't even do it. I wish that the current games did mirror our real world, which I guess the nature of it being online, they kind of can't do that, because if I'm playing with someone in Australia right now, you know what I mean? We can't go out into the same field and fight the same Pokemon and have them be reflective of the time of day, because we'll be in different times. But I love that. I loved in Black and White when they did seasons, and seasons actually changed as you played through. That stuff was super cool. That I think that all started in Gold, Silver by just giving you that sort of real sense of the world. Other than that, it's the new Pokemon that I fell in love with. Really took to Umbreon. Even I think Totodile I think the Gen 2 starters are definitely not as strong as the Gen 1, but I still have an affinity for them all this time later. But I think the big one is I don't know. I remember chasing down Ho-Oh in that first game, going through to see what do you have to get the rainbow wing and all that stuff, doing all those things to go hunt down Ho-Oh and get the creature that was on the box, because you kind of got to do that in Blue and Red just by nature of picking your starter. But this felt like a challenge that I had to do, and I did it. And you know what I mean? It was like a rite of passage. What about you? What lasting memories do you have after visiting Silver this time?
I think it's kind of how unexpectedly I got hooked by it. Maybe nothing specifically about the game itself. I thought I knew, and maybe that's why I haven't visited a Pokemon game forever. I thought I knew the gameplay loop. I thought not grown out of it, but just I just not in my wheelhouse of go-to types of games. And I've started to say it on the podcast, like that Shin Megami Tensei is that Pokemon for adults. But I don't know. I've for me saying as much as I have said about like Shin Megami Tensei and whatever, and me just feeling like I've outgrown Pokemon, coming back into it, I was not expecting to have as much fun and be like into it as much as I was. I thought it was going to start fun and then start to feel like a slog, and that slog kind of like never hit. Now, granted, I did take a break from part 1 to part 2 because I wanted to have an organic part 1 about Johto, and then an organic part 2 about Kanto. But dude, I was on that ship, and it was tough for me to know I'm closing it for the last time for a bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I think it's not necessarily about Silver, more of a personal thing, but I think that's going to be my lasting memory, kind of going on. That I can't believe it took me 20 some years to get to Silver, and I still have fun with it. Years later.
Is there a specific mechanic or element that you feel like made it so impressionable?
It's the loop of like going from gym to gym, and then you get to the gym, and it's like, well, no, we're not ready for you yet. Can you actually do this? And then you're going through it, and some of it was, yeah, sure, it was tedious, but it made sense in the scope of the story or whatnot. And then it was just like you're growing this party, and the gyms were just this like your stat check. Like, should you be here? Are you a good enough trainer kind of thing? It was just that overcoming that challenge. Which I feel like I did pretty good until that Miltank came out of nowhere. That I think I said it during that episode, part 1, but Victoria was laughing at me because I was bitching about this Miltank, and I did not know it was part of Pokemon lore that as one of the toughest boss or gym battles, period.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that entirely. With that in mind, that core gameplay loop and the way it hooked you and grabbed you, do you feel that Pokemon Gold, Pokemon Silver, are they perfect video games?
I think perfect's a loaded word, but I think it's perfect for what it is.
Sure.
I think 250 Pokemon sounds like a lot. I think it's actually the perfect amount. I think once you start to, where are we at now? Like 5,000 with a keyboard add-on.
Yeah. So we're just over 1,000, but I will say the core Pokedex in Violet is 400.
I know they divvy it up now, and then that pisses people off because they don't have their favorite Pokemon from Gen 7 or some bullshit that. But I think 250 is a good number because there was enough like recognition, but enough new where I didn't feel like totally lost as someone that's like not a part of Pokemon since the original 150. And I think the other thing is, and this is something you brought up, I can't remember if it was part 2 or part 1, but there's different ways of playing this game and like different ways in your own personal checklist. Like, yeah, technically probably beating the game is being red at the end by like the game's account, right? But like there's all those other personal accomplishments. Like, I know like you have them listed here in the outline, but like the collecting, getting all the Pokemon, gotta catch them all, right? Battling, like not just in the sense of like going through the gym battles to try and just overcome the challenge, but like training your Pokemon to whip your friend's ass. Like,
Yeah.
like to showboat. There's that. And then, like, I feel like there was a little bit of a story here at times, more so than Blue and Red, from what I remember. I might be wrong in that regard, but like all those different things let you chase different paths, and I don't know. Like I said, at the end of the day, I think beating Red is like the ultimate, like you beat the game. But I think if someone told me they completed their Pokedex but didn't beat Red, I would say they also beat the game. Like,
Yeah.
There's things to that. There's just all these different lanes. And I think for what this game goes out to accomplish, it does it perfectly.
I think that's a good summary of it. Which you were mostly drawn to training your team, right? Making your team the best.
Yeah, like seriously, after I got like the 12th Pokemon, that was like what I stuck with, and I just kind of ran the as much as I could of it.
Yeah, I ended up, I didn't really go collection heavy, and I tried to, but I kind of hit a wall with it where I was like, all right, I just want to see through the game. But I ended up taking my like collection itch into Violet and completed the Pokedex in Violet. And now, I mean, at the time of this recording, I'm 3 Pokemon away from completing the first DLC's Pokedex in Violet. By the time you're hearing it, it's probably done, and I'm already a good bit of the way through the second DLC's Pokedex. But
so,
yeah.
Well, I was going to ask, like, so kind of going off of that, how does this compare to the other Pokemon games, since you're talking about your Pokedexes?
I mean, this is weird because it's... I do tend to align with the old adage that we talk about when we talk about Final Fantasy, that like your first one's your favorite one. I kind of think that to an extent, but like Blue is not my favorite. Gold is my favorite Pokemon. Black might be my favorite Pokemon, but Blue was my first. Gold I think is my favorite. I do though feel like people who started with 3 better. You know what I mean? Like people have their favorite generations, things like that, and I think it's usually because of where you came in. But I think that Gold is and Silver, they're like perfect realizations. They're the complete story, and like as we talked about earlier in the season, Gold was meant to be a sequel and the final Pokemon game. It was a direct bookend to Red Blue. Gold Silver were supposed to close that chapter and end Pokemon forever. It just happened that Pokemon blew up.
Money.
The old green took them.
Not that green, not version green.
Not that one, but the other green. But I think I don't know. Like in the history of the rest of the games, I think I want more games like Gold, put it that way, right? Like, yes, I like the modern concessions that Pokemon's made. I like elements of other games that they've added, but I also think that a lot of Pokemon games have added a lot of things that are unnecessary fluff. Like, I think if, like, Gen 6 had, like, a beauty pageant thing, and, like, that was cool, but, like, it never, like, went all the way. I feel like if Pokemon wants to do those types of things, Pokemon should look more at what Yakuza does, right? Where Sega's making these, like, Sega was like, hey, it's been a while since we made a Crazy Taxi. What if we just made one but put it inside of Yakuza 8? And that's... If you want, you could unlock that minigame and just play that for the rest of your life, because there's enough content there to do it. And, like...
Right.
I wish Pokemon would get to that level with some of the weird minigames and spin-offs and things like that. Nothing's really, like, that deep in any of them. But I don't know. I really like it gets back to like that Halo ranking thing a little bit, where I do feel like 2 is like some of the best. I really do think, I'm saying 2, but Gold, Silver I think are the best. Like, I think that Violet, Scarlet are there. They look like trash, but like I've played enough of it now that I forget how they run. Like I'm not noticing how bad they are and how bad they run, how bad they look. But playing those games, like there's so many good things about them. But I still think Gold, Silver, there's a reason why I picked these two in particular, right? And not Black or White or anything else.
How approachable do you think Gold and Silver are? As someone that's played through all of them, or yeah, I guess all of them, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't play Gen 3 until the remakes, but everything else I've played, I've at least touched, except Black 2. I think that's the key of like any Pokemon game. It's that they're continually making them so that everyone can play. And I think that's been the tough part for a lot of people as they've gotten older, is they play these games and they complain about one thing or another, forgetting that we're not the target audience, right? Like, sorry, dude, you're in your 30s. Pokemon's not for you. You can play it, you can appreciate it, but they already got your money. You're going to keep coming back. They need to make sure they're doing everything to make it approachable for new players, and new players are children. And in that sense, I think even where I think Violet is like the most accessible and the best way to jump in, I think anyone right now could pick up Gold and Silver and jump in. And it's like Monster Hunter Wilds is coming out in a couple of months. And I think that's going to be, you're going to see this. I promise you. There will be news stories, there will be headlines that it is the fastest selling Monster Hunter. It has the biggest install base of any Monster Hunter ever. It will, whatever. Capcom will announce that it broke sales records. Like, all of those things are going to happen with Monster Hunter Wilds. I promise. Just the same, you're going to have people who've been playing these games forever who complain that they've made it too easy, they've made it too whatever, and all these noobs, blah, 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 blah. Like, people are going to, like, revolt against Wilds in that way, these old heads. But in turn, I don't think anyone can go back to those old games. Like, I've tried to go back to Monster Hunter 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, I've jumped into them and tried them out, and they are not as approachable. They're not as fun because they're a completely different type of game. For Gold and Silver, I think the only real, I don't even want to call it difficult, but like the only real tough part that's like a pain to recommend or a pain to go back to is the need to have hidden machines. Like, but that's a minor inconvenience that you adapt to, and
that's one of those things too, like, you know, when you play at the time of release, you don't know better. Too, like, you know, that's one of the things that the last couple seasons of us playing all these different games, like, and going back in time, like, some of that perspective of, well, did they know better? Like, no. Yeah, there's all kinds of modern conveniences, but if you had played it back then, it wouldn't have been a thought that, oh, you could, why can't you level your entire party just by using one Pokemon? And of course you have to swap them out. Like, you have to get them in the game. That's how they learn.
It wasn't until the Pokemon Company or Game Freak started to make some of those concessions that you started to realize, oh, we could do that, go all the way, you know? And like, now Violet's great because if you catch a Pokemon that's level 82 in the wild and it knows 4 moves and you're like, oh man, but I really wanted to know Shadow Ball, and it learns that at level 30. We'll just open up the menu and teach Shadow Ball, because you can just restore or recall moves at any time. It's a complete game changer. But like, I wouldn't have thought to do that in Gold or Silver because I just didn't even know it was there. So like, by the time we get to the DS
I fucked
games,
up I wish I could do that. I fucked up my Haunter. I accidentally overwrote Hypnosis by.
Nope, you're 2 clicks away from getting Hypnosis back.
I fucked that build. I mean, I made it work, but
no, Hypnosis is huge because then you do
Dream Eater.
Right?
It was a Dream Eater came up. I was like, I'm fucked. Can't use that one.
Nope, not at all. Otherwise, you got to go TM chasing, and like, who's got time for that? They've done things, but I never would have thought of that as a thing to do, and like, yeah. So in that sense, I think you could pick it up. Like, that's the one thing I hope. I'm pretty sure that we're going to end up getting that Pokemon Legends ZA game in like the first few months of the year. But my hope is that we don't. Like, I hope we don't get it until like summer. And in February, they give us red, blue, gold, silver, something like that on the, I was going to call it virtual console, but on the Switch online stuff. Like, and pull that stuff in, like let people go back to these, because I think people could and would and should go back to these old games. And I think gold and silver, even more than red and blue, because they added so many little like things that make the games a little bit more unique and whatever. And I think that you do end up kind of with a complete experience by the end of it. You don't need to have played red and blue to appreciate these. It adds to it, but I think also the fact that you get to go back through Kanto gives you a taste of everything. How about difficulty in the game? Do you feel like as you play, the risk was worth the reward, or the reward was worth the risk?
So you have a gradual, right? And then you have a huge spike at the Elite Four. And then the spike comes down, like midway. And then steadily kind of increases again. And then you go through the roof. And then the game ends with the red battle. That red battle that's something. I still haven't gone back to beat it or / train the brutal Pokemon. But yeah. I just know it's a time. Like I can do it. I just know I gotta just train my Pokemon, and I really don't feel like I don't have the time. I don't have the.
Look, man, we don't have the Blockbuster or the Pokemon or the Game Boy printer where we can print out our certificate saying that we beat it.
Yeah.
So what's the point? You know?
Yeah, really. So yeah. I look. I think the gyms do a good job of leading you as like a good benchmark of where you should be. Up until pretty much, like I said, the Elite Four, it takes a nice hike. But then, like, the gyms get easy again. Like, Kanto felt like a breeze after the Elite Four.
Yeah.
I would say it dipped too much there for the real check at the end, because the check at the end that's like Dark Souls secret boss battle. And that's not some check.
Yeah, no, it's not at all at the same kind of level. But it does, I think, give you incentive to like chase something.
Oh, if I'm a kid and this is the only game I have, I'm for sure beating it.
Yeah, all the way. Yes, 100%. I think let's start comparing the two. How do Pokemon Gold, Pokemon Silver, how do they resemble Halo Combat Evolved?
I know. Yeah. I can't even like point to graphics. Music's kind of iconic in a way.
Yeah.
I think they both bring really good, solid single player experiences. In a weird way, I like Halo's objectives are linear. I know we just talked about Pokemon. Like, there's this like landscape of things you could do that I would consider you beating the game. Halo is very much like you gotta get from point A to point B, but how you get there, you can get there in a Banshee, you can get there in a Warthog, you can squeeze a ghost through there, you can try to put a ghost on a spine of a ridge and try to eke your way up there. Like, you can jump on each other's backs, try to get someone over to then checkpoint, get you through. Like, the path there is different every time. So I think
it's your choice.
I think flexibility, I think is the one, it is a key word here that can, where they resemble one another.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's the thing where, like, that points out how, I don't want to call these games similar, but how they are similar in ways. I think the other big thing for me is, you talked about Halo being so definitive of the Xbox, and I think that Pokemon in general became definitive of the Game Boy. Gold and Silver, maybe not, but they were certainly like the ones you would buy for the Game Boy Color at the time.
Victoria, like, she has a Switch for Pokemon.
Yeah, people still buy, right? People buy these consoles for those, and I think, like, back then, if you were going to, or I don't know, or if you walked up to anybody right now and say, like, hey, Game Boy, what's the first game you think of? Most people are going to say Pokemon. They might not be specific on Gold or Silver, but Pokemon is probably the answer. If they're a little bit older, maybe Tetris. A little bit older still, they were one of the weirdos that played Dr. Mario on Tetris. Dr. Mario on Game Boy. But yeah, I think Pokemon's sort of synonymous with Game Boy in the way that Halo is synonymous with Xbox. Is one of these games more immersive than the other?
I think the easy answer is Halo, just because first-person shooter. Like that's the gimmick of that genre in a way. Like it's your eyes. The TV is like the eyes of the player you are, but I don't know. You get into it because, like, the other part of it is, yeah, you're walking around as a character, but, like, you're controlling the player, but you're not controlling the combat. Like, you're controlling your pets, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, and, you know, they are, like, you control them much like your character is controlling them. So, like, in that way, it's equally as immersive because, like, you end up, like, it's weird because you end up getting your favorites, you end up getting your situationals, you end up getting that one Pokemon that really shouldn't be part of your party, but you would hang on to him anyway because he's cool as shit. Like, you grow attached to your Pokemon, whether it's your six or your Dex, like, whatever. Like, you have different infatuations with them, and that's, like, I don't know, it somehow be probably more immersive than just, like, being the eyes of a soldier, in loose terms.
Yeah, I think that fits, like, because you're still you, right? Like, it asks you in the game, what's your name? It's not,
right.
You know, you don't get that in Halo. You are the Master Chief. You're playing as
John Halo.
John Halo, but you're not saying you're not writing Matt Halo in the opening credits. And I think, like, yeah, in that sense, I do think that they're immersive in their own ways. And I think for me it goes into sort of the meta of the game, where I sort of had, like, an infatuation with both that left the games themselves, right? Like with Pokemon, there's that whole external factor to Pokemon. Same with Halo, I think. Which, to that end, do you think that in the way that Pokemon grabbed everybody, do you think that Halo Combat Evolved was able to capture the attention of the masses?
As much as I want to say yes, I think the answer is no. I want to think back to, like if I ask my sister, no care in the world about video games. If I asked her what a Halo was, she's going to look at me like I have five heads. If I told her I played a Pokemon game recently, one, she'd probably make fun of me thinking I'm a child. But she know what it was. And she knows what a Pikachu is. Like, so, you know, compared to the Pokemon, that's a very tough ask. Because Pokemon, like, I got fucking plushies upstairs of, like, Gengar and shit because of Victoria. Like, I have no care whatsoever for Pokemon, but it's somehow in my house because of someone that doesn't play video games but will play any Pokemon game that Nintendo releases. And that's how I know it's reached mass audiences. She might know what Halo is, but she doesn't know what a Forerunner is or anything like that.
Right. Yeah. In that turn, you talked a lot about Halo's innovation and how it sort of defined console shooter, that kind of thing. Do you think that in the same way Pokemon Gold, Pokemon Silver defined something for the mobile RPG?
I don't think Gold necessarily did. I think just because of it being a 2, it definitely polished that, though. I think Red and Blue are that mainstream kind of pocket monster, or, you know, like some kind of, like, collect a team and that's your RPG. And I think, I don't know, I'm trying to think of any other RPGs that are on Game Boy. Maybe it is just like that's the RPG. But no, I think the answer to that is no, but that's because Red and Blue it's a sequel to Red and Blue, but Gold and Silver does everything better that Red and Blue did. So in a way, yes.
Yeah, makes sense. final thoughts on Halo Combat Evolved, Pokemon Gold, and Pokemon Silver.
Halo, I said when we talked about it to end it, kind of like it's a masterpiece for its time, and I still think it holds up very, very well today. And it definitely laid some groundwork for those that come after it, both Halo and in that genre, especially on console. Pokemon, I'd be more curious about your final thoughts about Pokemon, but like, Pokemon's not my type of game. And I talk about Shin Megami Tensei, but ask me how many hours I probably have total in those games, and it's not that much. I probably have more total hours in Pokemon games at this point. So like, this just isn't my type of game, but I still found enjoyment. I still got hooked. I was still into it, and I hit the brick wall that was red, and that was like the first time I got discouraged and didn't want to turn on the game because I just knew the time sink. But man, the rest of the path there, I had a blast with. I liked, I liked the little dumb story. I liked the rivalry. I liked the challenge of going through the gyms in Elite Four, kind of getting lost in the world. Seeing dumb Pokemon, laughing at them. I don't think I get my best laughs until I probably start playing Gen 3 and Gen 4, but we start to get some of them here. But yeah, no, I think Gold and Silver is kind of what I think is perfect at what it wants to do. I don't want to say it doesn't leave its wheelhouse, but it stays in the wheelhouse of Red and Blue. It just kind of does everything elevated.
Yeah, I was surprised, I think, overall at how playable they still were. Because I was really scared putting these on the list this year, especially positing them as potential Wii Sports Killers, that they would be really tough to go back to. But I was pleasantly surprised that I played it, had a good time playing it, and, thankfully with stuff like the Pocket by Analog, I was able to play it with more modern conveniences while still using my original Game Boy cart, which was cool. But to that end, like, I took it on a train for a trip to New York, and I grinded out raising my Jinx in this one little spot, just fighting Gravelers over and over again. Like, and I didn't have a bad time. Like, I just listened to a podcast. Funnily enough, I listened to an old 1UP podcast about the 10th anniversary of Pokemon while grinding out Jinx levels and stuff like that. And I don't know, it still felt good to play, and it was exciting to play, and there were a lot of nuances about the characters, the story, the writing that I'd forgotten about or didn't even like hit me when I was a kid.
Right.
They do hit differently now. And I really love the old designs of all the sprites and everything. Like, you kind of take it for granted, like, how well done those are and how iconic some of those characters are at this point, especially when we've now got 1,000 Pokemon and there's too many, you know what I mean? Like, there's still, like, I come across Pokemon in Violet and I'm like, who is this? And I look it up and it's like, oh, that's a Gen 4 Pokemon. And like, I caught it before, you know what I mean? Like, I got it from my Pokemon bank or whatever, like, but no idea who it is. So yeah, I think in that sense, the visual design of Pokemon surprised me at how well it still holds up, how readable it is, etc. They're solid games. I think that concludes part 2 of our Killing Wii Sports series, with our final arguments for Halo Combat Evolved and Pokemon Gold version, Pokemon Silver version. Matt, next week we're ranking it.
It's all come to this.
Everything leads to here. So, listener, come back next week where we'll talk a bit about Wii Sports, and we'll talk about how our 4 games, Super Mario Galaxy 2, Tetris Effect Connected, and Halo and Pokemon, all compare to Wii Sports and ultimately how they rank against Wii Sports. Until next time, thank you, listener. Thank you, Matt. Bye.